Old men become badass after thug disrespect him. I hope you like the video. And spoiler ahead. Frank Vega, Shalem Ortiz, is traveling by bus, and two punks get in. He starts remembering his teenage years, saying that they were the simplest and the happiest. He was the son of some small local farmers, and had a beautiful girlfriend called Lindsay, Jillian Murray. He has to do something with his life, so he decides to join the army, and ends up being tortured and wounded in Vietnam. When he returns to the USA, he has to follow rehabilitation, and then he tries to come back to his life. However, when he visits adult Lindsay, Donzelle Abernathy, she is already married with 2 children. He tries to join the police forces, but his wands cause him to be rejected. He can't find a decent job, as all the possible employees want university degrees and experience. Finally, he starts selling hot dogs in a street post. And 40 years have gone by, and Frank, Danny Trejo's life has slipped through his fingers. He repents about his life. When 2 punks enter the bus, they bother a passenger. Frank tells them to stop, so he becomes the object of their wrath, but he defends himself and ends up beating them to a pulp. Some other passengers record this with their mobile phones, and they upload it onto YouView with the title Badass. Frank becomes an instant celebrity, and he and Mrs. Vega, Tanita Castro, are interviewed at the morning program LA Mornings by a journalist, Sam Rubin. 3 months later, Frank's mother dies. Father Miller, Richard Riley, gives out a deep and nice speech, but Frank is sad anyway. He takes all the cutlery to their local church, as stated in her will. The rest will be for him. On TV, Mayor Williams, Ron Perlman, wants to improve the safety of the Latin quarters. He is about to move in with his best friend in Mrs. Vega's home. During the moving, they stop to drink Mrs. Vega's drinks and they reminisce about the old times in Nam, how Klondike, Washington, Harrison Page, saved Frank's life, and they talk about the best day of their lives, which is yet to come. Klondike goes out to buy more liquor, and 2 punks threaten him. They are looking for something, which he says he doesn't have. It looks as though Klondike has won the fight. However, the guy called Sebastian, Craig Johnson, shoots Klondike and kills him. He and the other, Dorian Kingi, run away. Frank gets call and to identify his friend's body, leaving Frank heartbroken. Frank decides not to go out with his cop friend, and thinks that Detective Shah, Frank Maharaj, is not doing anything to investigate Klondike's death because he was black. He watches TV, and a news anchor, Christine Klayberg, says that 20 detectives were implied in the investigation of a person's run over. Frank feels frustrated when he sees some detectives playing games instead of working, so he decides to take things in his own hands. In fact, he goes to the place of the fight and finds one strange cartridge and a necklace with a photograph inside. It is a hunter weapon, a Beretta, something designed for the government and its army. The gun shop says that the girl in the photo looks like a girl who usually attends his church. He visits that lady, who is fed up with the man who supposedly lost her necklace at Frank's, called Terrence, Eric Betts. She tells him that he's been away for a week, probably playing ball with his friends. At 22nd Street Park, Terrence's friends, Joe Holliday, Buddy Sostan and Mark Rhino Smith, are beaten until they tell Frank to look for Ronaldo, Andy Davoli. He visits Ronaldo's apartment, and a man dressed as a Catholic priest, Jack Freshkin, thinks that he was going to rob them, so he attacks them. Williams talks to Panther, Charles S. Dutton, the former's contact on the streets. Williams is facing re-election in 90 days, and it all depends on finding that pen drive. Williams is afraid of Frank. Panther says that the streets are his, and that he'll take care of Badass, because his brothers dealt with Klondike in the wrong way. Frank helps an elderly lady, Norma Michaels, with her bags, and somebody shoots him. Frank still talks to Martin, John Duffy, the cutely savvy son of his neighbor, who has put violent Terrence out after he has hit her. Frank questions about Ronaldo in a bar, starting a bar brawl, who he wins. The bartender, Tommy Rosales, tells him that Ronaldo is upstairs. A pimp tells that Ronaldo is with Tatiana, Winter Avenue Zoli. At Mrs. Vega's, a thug asks Frank about a pen drive. Frank tells Martin to use it, and that's how they see all the plans for the regentrification of the whole neighborhood. Frank goes to Tatiana's massage parlor. Tatiana is a blonde masseuse who says she has split up with Ronaldo and leaves Frank. Looking for Ronaldo, a badass fan, Esteban Cueto, neighbor tells him to burglar it in. In fact, he tells him that Tatiana always leaves her back door open. Tatiana and Ronaldo are at it. Frank takes Ronaldo's hand through the rubbish disposal system and cuts several fingers. He says that Sebastian killed Klondike, and that Buster was the one who called the shots. Frank defends Martin's mother from Martin Sr., who's hitting her. Frank gets all cute to have dinner with her at her garden, which reminds Frank of his own mother. Frank gives to his friend Officer Malark the pen, just in case something bad happens to him. Frank goes to confess, because he's looking for revenge. Frank goes to Panther's garage directly. Two thugs are there, but Panther decides to face him directly, but not on his own. Panther tortures Frank with electricity, the same kind of torture that he had to face in Nam. Panther finds a photograph of Amber at Frank's wallet, so he threatens him with him going to attack her. As soon as Panther leaves, Frank releases himself with a lighter in a cheese moment, in my opinion, and then there's this huge fight. Fire is everywhere, and then everything blows up. Panther runs away and takes a bus from a driver, Robert Sean Burke. When Frank tells a bus driver, Craig Moss, that he needs to steal his bus, the driver happens to be a fan of Frank's, so he will let him take his bus happily. Frank runs after the bus, creating havoc and chaos on their way, until Frank bumps onto a building. Panther decides to meet Frank face to face at the LA Market premises. On the last second, Frank swerves, but Panther's bus is crashed by an incoming train. Of course, this doesn't stop either of them. They both reach Amber's at the same time, and they fist fight. Panther wonders how Frank Vega was able to find such a sexy lady. Amber takes Frank's side, obviously, but it's Frank Vega who gives Panther the final punches. Frank says that he never had a woman rescuing him. She is worried because Frank's got a black eye and is bleeding. A journalist says that the audience may remember Frank Vega badass, but that he uncovered a major political corruption case, which meant that the mayor's office was linked to a terrorizing street gang.
Please subscribe for more movie